Hi, and welcome to Matt Holman Talks Mental Health, the podcast where I have the opportunity to sit down and chat with amazing humans about their journeys with mental health. For this episode, I'm so happy to introduce Paige Wilcox to the conversation. Welcome, Paige.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Oh, brilliant. And as you may tell by the accent, Paige is not from the UK. So we're actually talking between the UK and Australia today. I'm so excited to have this conversation. Paige reached out to me, as I always do, just a quick introduction to how I know Paige. Paige reached out to me on social media with an amazing story, shared a TEDx talk that she delivered. I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit about that as well in this conversation. Had a look at that, and you know what? It's inspirational stories that we're looking for, and intentional storytelling was the title of the TEDx talk. But I'm not going to steal too much thunder. It's just been amazing just in the few minutes that we've had before the recording to get to know each other a little bit. But Paige, I'm going to throw it over to you. Welcome. Do your introduction. Let people know who you
are. Thank you. So my name is Paige. I am a woman who was assigned male at birth, and I'm a writer. Predominantly, I use intentional storytelling. That's my chosen method of writing to address different problems that I see in mainstream media. I don't know what else I want to say about who I am. And yes, I'm an Aussie.
Yeah, you are. Well done. Congratulations. Brilliant stuff. You've pretty much covered what you do, right? Which is intentional storytelling, and you help people raise these conversations, but you do a lot more than just telling stories, right? So helping communities and the work that you do with diversity and inclusion and everything else.
Absolutely. I have a very long history with activism in the rainbow community specifically, as well as a little bit of disability and other forms of inclusion. But probably in the last month, I really realized that I wanted to pursue writing as my main way of being an activist. And I'm kind of fairly early on in that journey, actually. And a huge part of that was really the emotional toll other forms of activism took on me. And to do them, I really couldn't be looking after my own well-being. So with writing, I can actually do that. It allows me to be a healthy individual as well as to help other people. So it's, yeah, that's kind of why I'm focusing on writing now.
Brilliant. Well, all the very best with that. So let's go into the big conversation now. I want to hear your story. I want you to talk about what your life has looked like. But the question then is your journey with mental health. That's the same question everybody gets asked. Define it as you will. Tell us what you like, but please do tell us a story. Let us know all about your Paige.
Okay, well, my life started in regional Queensland in Australia. So it was quite an isolated sort of area, and I very early realized that I was quite different to the rest of my family for a variety of reasons. Part of them being that I was being raised as a boy, but very strongly felt within myself that I was a woman. But also I did seem to experience the world a little bit differently, and I was very much in my head. Mm-hmm. You know, my dysphoria probably had a little bit to do with that, but really through through my childhood, even though I had very loving parents, my perception of the world really was that I couldn't trust people with being authentic, with telling them who I was. You know, I picked up little comments here and there that people said that kind of confirmed for me that keeping to myself and hiding and remaining isolated was a way to keep safe. I'm very glad to not feel that way now, by the way. I'm in a very good position right now today. Um, I really struggled throughout childhood with strong feelings of anxiety, particularly around socializing with people, and also with really any sort of getting up and speaking. I would become too ill to go to school when we had to give a talk. And reflecting on that now, it's actually pretty cool to be here talking to a stranger.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, not a stranger now, a stranger an hour ago.
Yeah.
I could never have done this, 25, 30 years ago. So moving on from there, when I hit puberty, I became very depressed and dropped out of school. I was too depressed to go to school at all. So that was while I was in high school. And I did on a few occasions try to end my life. One of the occasions, and I might get slightly emotional at this because the feelings around this are quite complex, but it was a Sunday night and I pretended to have a headache to stay home from church while my parents were at church. And my mum actually came back to check on me to see how I was doing and caught me in the act of trying to end my life. And I can't imagine what my mother was going through in that situation. And yeah, I feel incredibly emotional thinking about her side of that situation, which I really didn't acknowledge for years afterwards. I feel so fortunate now that she did intervene and I didn't die. That I am thankful for that every day because I have had so many amazing experiences since. But from that day, it was still a very long journey towards really accepting mental illness. And our family really didn't understand what mental illness was and didn't really acknowledge it as legitimate. There were a lot of dysfunctional beliefs that we held around, if you go to the doctor about your mental health, if you go on medication, you're not trusting God. And my family's faith was the most important thing to them. So they didn't want to do anything that really went against their faith or really challenged that. So for me, that unfortunately ended up having quite a bad impact because we kind of tried to pray it away rather than accessing services that were there. We're like, oh no, we're going to not be loud about this. We're not going to really talk outside the family too much about this. We're going to keep it to ourselves and just, pray. And that's the action we're taking. And it wasn't until I moved to Brisbane. So I moved to Brisbane, Australia. So that's the capital city of Queensland. I did that in the year 2000. I tried going back to school, but dropped out again. And I discovered a love of acting, which was really weird as an introverted, socially anxious kid. But what I loved about it was I felt like I had been living with this forced mask that was not me, and that people, with acting, I got to choose. I got to choose how I was expressing myself to people. And I found that really empowering. one of the benefits of that was going to film, television and theatre school, where we really had to dig under the layers of ourselves. And I didn't fully, I didn't dig all the way down. But I definitely came to see myself in a more authentic way. I became a bit more accepting of some of my quirks. And it was then that I'm like, okay, I know that I can medically transition to present myself in the way that I feel as a woman. So I did that. That was very tough.
Yeah.
And I was quite naive in that situation, I think, of having this false idea of that being the reason for every issue in my life, and thinking that once I transitioned that all of my problems would go away because now I'm myself.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the case at all. And it really took a lot of work over the past 2 decades, because it's been about 20 years now, going up and down on a bit of a roller coaster, struggling with substance misuse. And although I've been sober for many years now, it wasn't until this lovely pandemic hit that I was forced to really confront my unresolved mental health issues. And although I had seen psychiatrists and psychologists and gone through wellbeing courses, it was just last year, that I was having symptoms that were really quite extreme. And I also saw the impact that it was having on my partner. And those 2 things were really a wake-up call. It also kind of affected my work. I had some really challenging experiences at work, interpersonally with people. And I'm like, okay, I have to deal with this. I can't do this on my own. I have been really hyper independent and have tried to do everything myself. I've learned everything that I can learn. Clearly, I need a professional to really guide me. So with that, I have worked in the past year with a GP, a psychologist, and a psychiatrist to work out medication that works for me for the moment. Whether or not I'm on that long term, we don't know.
Yep.
I'm still quite early in that, but that's definitely helped. But we've also really pulled apart complex trauma and those longer term ways my childhood has affected me that I was just unaware of. You know, I was aware that I really hated this or felt uncomfortable with that. But in the past year, I've been able to work through, okay, where does that come from? Yeah. Why does that make me uncomfortable? And I'm an anxious person, and I feel that is a part of me. I don't think I would feel like myself if I didn't have some of that. Yeah. And it certainly my anxiety, when it's at a manageable level, it actually drives me forward and helps me achieve what I want to achieve. But definitely I've realized that I have to be mindful of when that anxiety is getting into an unhealthy level, and, you know, how I look and behave when it's starting to escalate, because it's usually not a sudden thing. You know, your unhealthy habits sort of creep in. Stop sleeping properly, start snapping at people, and then having a full-blown meltdown. So I'm at a very interesting time in my emotional journey, my mental health journey. And I do have some more work to do,
Yeah, sure.
but I am so happy with where I am now. And I've been very fortunate to be in a relationship with a partner through this who, although they haven't had a good understanding of what I've been through, they have been open to learning and listening and supporting, which really was what I needed. And not to place blame on anyone else in my life, but I didn't have that previously. Like I didn't feel that I could be that vulnerable. I don't think I realized that at the time. So something that made that very interesting, that past 12 months of discovery, was a year ago, I was supposed to do a TED talk on intentional storytelling and how I had used it to my benefit. And the event got put on hold for almost a year. So that was quite a complex feeling, and we can talk more about that if you like. But essentially, I had my talk written and I sat on it for almost a year. And there was this really interesting thing that happened up in my head with that, where I didn't feel like I could grow beyond what I had asserted in that talk.
Right. Yeah.
Like if I grew too much, when I get up there and say my talk, am I telling the truth anymore, or have I grown past it? And I'm now not being honest with the audience. Anyway, it was a fascinating thing to reflect on afterwards, and being on the other side of it, I am so relieved.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
I will put it back over to you though, because I think I've given a bit of an overview, and I think you might have some specific things to pick at.
Oh gosh, you know, it's just fascinating. I thank you so much for sharing and what you've shared as well. And I know it's sometimes it's hard, isn't it, to go back to some of those feelings and those memories, especially around the big event that you outlined with your attempt to end your life, and with your mum coming in. And thankfully, your mum came in and everything changed, and of course there's a lot of hard work that's taken place in there as you've gone through that journey. I do want to touch a little bit on the sort of the last year in particular, because I think that's something that a lot of listeners will of course resonate with and understand. We've all been through this wonderful experience called COVID, but in terms of sort of recognizing that change in yourself, that's something that we talk about a lot in these episodes, is having that awareness that things aren't right again. What happened? Can you define that a little bit more for us? What was the trigger that said, oh my God, I need to do something here? Can you define that a little bit more?
Absolutely. There were two specific behaviors that really woke me up, and really what triggered it was seeing more severe symptoms in someone that I care about very much. I won't say who that is, but realizing that I was predisposed to some of the same things. Okay. And this person had to be hospitalized. They got so bad. And things escalated where medication wasn't helping them anymore. That was a big wake up to me. And I looked at myself, and the two things that I mentioned, one was there's this thing, excoriation. So if I have imperfections, or it's a scratching thing. So I scratch my skin a bit, and it will usually start with some sort of irregularity in the skin. And I'm like, I'll just scratch at it.
Right.
I was starting to do that without realizing. And then I would look down and I was bleeding, and I had scratched myself to the point of breaking skin, and I couldn't stop. I knew that I wanted to stop. I knew that it wasn't a healthy way to express myself with my body, and I didn't want to do it. I understood that the more I scratched, the more I would get calloused, and with the callus, I would want to scratch that more, and it would just get worse and worse. But I had absolutely no ability to stop. I tried so hard. I tried distraction. I went for long walks and walked and walked and walked. I got some sensory things, and they didn't do the trick either with this specific thing. So that was one of the things. And this is something that can be associated with substance misuse, I think, as well. I was spending so much money on bandages to try to cover them.
Yeah.
And I think my partner was quite astounded with how much money I was spending trying to cover up the harm that I was doing to myself. Separate to that, I had some pretty major meltdowns where I wasn't able to speak, and I would start crying and was unable to stop myself from crying. And I would like lie down on the floor, and my partner would lie down next to me and just have to ride it out. But there were also some occasions where I really erupted in anger about something that had made me feel unsafe. And those two things together, along with the person that I knew who was in hospital, I'm like, okay, this is no longer manageable. This is out of my control. This is having a negative impact on my partner, who I care for, and I want them to feel safe and comfortable with me and supported. And I'm currently unable to do that. And what I first actually did was took to the internet, because I guess that's a fantastic way for researching. And I found some online surveys and things. And there's a government organization that offer online help and a treatment course. So I first did a well-being course with them. So they release content to you progressively, and you work through it. And it's all about mental health, and it really breaks down the different elements, unhelpful behaviors and thoughts, how to challenge those thoughts. And you also have therapists who can, message you and arrange calls with you to talk through stuff. I wasn't able to really talk through much very well on the phone. I find phones very difficult. I really need that face-to-face interaction if I'm going to open up. But the course content was really good, and it had really good examples of past participants of the course that had worked through similar issues or had similar experiences to me, and how they had approached healing.
Yep.
Further on in my journey to recovery, I call it my trauma recovery roadmap. So one of the quirky things about me is I am obsessed with spreadsheets, and if I can find a way to put something into a spreadsheet, I will.
Yeah.
And my treating team find it quite amusing. And I think I make them laugh a lot when my eyes light up and I say, what you've just told me to do, I can do it in a spreadsheet.
Oh, really?
This is the most exciting time of my life.
Yeah.
So with that, I was able to make a spreadsheet that started off as a wellness or well-being evaluation. And it was all the different aspects of my life, different symptoms, different experiences, all together. And I tried to organize it so that I could have a better understanding of really how all those pieces came together. Okay. That then became this trauma roadmap to recovery that I worked through. It gave me a place to start in terms of these are my thoughts, feelings, and behaviors right now about these different things. This is where I want to be. And it gave me the opportunity to plan a path towards that.
Yeah.
And I think that's not for everyone. That specifically works with my mind.
If you like spreadsheets, of course, it's for everybody.
Yeah, if you like spreadsheets, that's not for everyone. Yeah. And then
brilliant.
One of the approaches I've had to take with a few things is exposure therapy. So there's this thing called SUDS, which I don't know what the acronym means, but it's essentially small steps of exposure.
Okay.
So you might plan 100 different steps. At the top of those steps is something that you have to avoid due to some sort of PTSD type response.
Right, okay, yeah.
And you plan out little experiences that you can expose yourself slowly and repetitively to get yourself to a position to where you can actually face that specific trauma. You can be exposed to that trauma trigger. Sorry. So that, yeah, it has been a time. And
incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I'm trying to say there, but definitely I couldn't have done that alone.
Yes.
I had no idea how much was going on with me. I didn't even know the term complex PTSD and how it differed from PTSD. Would it be useful to give a terminology?
Please, yeah. Yep, if you want to, yeah.
So I think most people are familiar with PTSD as a response to a significant trauma or a significant response to some trauma. And, we can't pick and choose what we are traumatized by. It just, sometimes someone is traumatized by something, sometimes they're not. With complex trauma, it's more traumatic experiences that have happened over a long time, right, or have been repeated. So it's not that single event.
Yes.
And the way that affects people mentally is different. It affects things like your ability to trust, your ability to feel safe. It's a bit broader and more complex than regular PTSD. Does that definition?
Yeah, definitely. I totally understand. Yeah, I struggled with a single trauma event. So that was my post-traumatic stress, but that was based on a single trauma. So it wasn't a complex culmination, combination of different things or long-term events. But no, thank you for sharing that. Really do appreciate that. And I know so many elements of your story. We're going to connect with so many different people, and that's what this is about. We are coming towards the end though, and we knew this half an hour was just going to disappear before our very eyes, didn't we?
It's not long enough.
It just isn't long enough, is it? And I feel terrible for limiting time, but yeah, that's what you do, unfortunately. I'm going to throw it over to you though for final thoughts. Just if there's anything you want to share, any resources that you can help people to sort of see more about you and so on. So I'll throw that over to you. Any words of wisdoms or thoughts? Final thoughts?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, if you know someone who has mentioned that they're having any sort of mental health concern, don't just ignore it. Find out why they're telling you specifically. Like, are they asking your help, or, do they want to just talk to you about it, or, do they not know where to go to seek help? But also definitely, if you are experiencing a mental health concern, see a professional about it as soon as possible, and make sure that you have at least someone in your life that you can confide in, that you can trust, to support you as you work through that. I didn't realize how isolated I'd made myself, and even from friends, of keeping a lot of stuff from my friends. As I've started to try to connect more with those friends, it has really given me more power, or more emotional energy or emotional capacity to work through things that are really difficult. But I also couldn't have gotten to a much healthier place where I am now without the help and guidance of my whole treating team. Like, my GP, psychologist, psychiatrist, and medication have all really played a huge part. And it has been really humbling to really trust them, trust that they have my interests in mind, and that I can't do it myself, that I have to sort of surrender a bit of and be vulnerable with those people, because it's a slightly different experience to, breaking your arm and getting that treated by a medical professional. It is so complex dealing with the inner workings of the mind. Separate to that, with my work as a intentional storyteller, I am always working to improve the characters in the stories that I write. I mostly plan to write fiction moving forward, and something that's very important for me in all of that writing is having characters that accurately reflect the human experience and actively fight unhelpful or unhealthy bias, tropes, and stereotypes. I think all of us are affected in some way by some of the repeating things in media, the unhelpful things in media that really shape how we view ourselves and the people in our lives, and really can inform how we interact with each other. So it's kind of a big thing, and I'm hoping to get more people doing it. I don't want to do all this on my own. I know there are other writers trying to write this way, but to really consider, okay, what are these specific problems in media today?
Right.
Books, film, TV, video games. What's a healthier way we can explore the same topics so that, we can move into a healthier society and not, I guess, be heading towards a dystopia.
Don't Yeah.
I just dropped that.
Oh my God, that's what you might as well just drop the mic there. Done. Dystopia. Win. My gosh. Days. Oh. Honestly, I find it fascinating listening to you talking, Paige, and I'm so happy that we managed to, connect and to sit down and to record this, and I can just listen to you talking about all of your experiences and what you're doing and the work you're doing. I think on your profile it says what is it? Intentional storytelling, award-winning activist, social change maker, atypical thinker, and all these wonderful things that you're doing just to helping engage and educate and support people. So please keep doing them. You've just launched a website as well, just a little profile website that gives some more details about the work that you do. I will drop the link into this episode as well. So if anybody does want to watch or look out for you for more of your work, please do. The website is paigekrystalwilcox.com. Paige with an I and Krystal with a K, I think is right. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
There you go. But you'll have the link attached to this as well. It's been an absolute pleasure. Of course, I knew it would be. I always have conversations with amazing, and you're an amazing human being that is doing some amazing things. So please keep going, keep doing what you're doing.
That means a lot coming from you. I have great respect for what I've seen so far, and chatting with you today has been a fantastic experience, and I hope we can get to chat again.
Definitely. You know what? The magic works, right? This environment is so suited to these conversations. So
absolutely.
It's been brilliant. So thank you. For anybody that is listening, if you are struggling with any of the subjects that we talked about, if there's anything that's worrying you, I'm sure you can reach out. Paige, would you be happy if anybody was to reach out with any questions?
Yeah.
Excellent. And similarly, you can reach out to me, of course. If anybody does want to attend an episode recording with me, to be in an episode even, that's probably the best way to put it, isn't it? I don't have audience to these things. Feel free to get in touch as well. There are organisations, of course, out there that are here to support these conversations of mental health. In the UK, Samaritans 116123, and there are many organisations all around the world that help people who are struggling. You are not alone. That's the most important message. It can feel very lonely when you feel there is nobody there to help, but there are. Please know that. So look after yourselves. Paige, it's been a pleasure. I just want to say a huge thank you and a goodbye to you. It's been lovely to get to know you and to hear your story.
Thank you very much, and goodbye to you too.
Thank you very much.